Hey, sports fans, welcome to another edition of the WTOP Huddle. Dave Johnson is on vacation, so Rob Woodfork standing in the captain's chair, as it were. And next man up, whenever it's a sports analogy, so Ben Raby is in the house. And you got to have Ben around when you're talking about tennis and hockey and those sports that he's the master at, so it were. We have Dave Preston, as usual, alongside George Wallace, Chris Cichon. So let's start with you, Ben. We had the big victory for a couple of local guys. How far can these guys go, do you think?
Yeah, Frances Tiafoe, the story, I'll tell you, fellas, not just locally, but internationally. That was the biggest story on day one of Wimbledon. Frances Tiafoe, Hyattsville native and JTCC alum, and certainly a guy who wears his pride on his sleeve when it comes to the DMV, upsetting world number 4 Stefano Tsitsipas in straight sets. He did not just get by. He really dictated play for large stretches of that match, did Tiafoe, and doing so on the big stage. Court number 1, the second largest court on Wimbledon, a big stage international-wise. So good on Frances Tiafoe. And to your point, an opportunity now. You knock off the number 3 seed in the tournament. That was the big seed in his sort of quarter of the draw, if you will. So not to look too far ahead, but maybe an opportunity here to at least play into the second week. That's the expression in tennis. You want to play into the second week of a Grand Slam tournament. That's really the round of 16, the quarterfinals. It would match one of the deepest runs of his career. And I think at this point, that's a realistic goal for Frances Tiafoe, playing with some confidence now, fresh off winning a tournament overseas a couple of weeks ago as well.
Absolutely. And Denis Kudla also in this, the Arlington native, Dave Preston. What are you seeing from another guy with some local ties?
I see some possibilities. I don't think he has the same upside as Frances Tiafoe, but I'm just happy to be talking about Americans in a tennis major. There's been quite a drought. I think Andy Roddick in 2003, the U.S. Open, he's the most recent American to win a men's major. And we're getting to the point where guys like Steve Johnson and John Isner are now no longer the up-and-coming guys that you thought might be the possibilities. They're now on the other side of their career, so to speak. There was a guy before, there was a Brit by the name of Tim Henman, who for the longest time was Great Britain's best hope to win a major, and especially at Wimbledon. Before Andy Murray, became the guy who ended a drought that was over, I believe, 70 years old. So it's nice to have up and coming guys. I'm very curious as to see, with the opportunity that Frances Tiafoe has in front of him, as Ben mentioned, this wasn't a fluke from the standpoint of he didn't squeak past him in 4 or 5 sets. This was a straight set drubbing, and you hope that perhaps he can cultivate this momentum and be really laser focused and get to the second weekend, because nothing is less ideal following Wimbledon or any of the majors when there are no Americans entering that second week. You don't hope, you hope for a champion, you cross your fingers, but you'd at least like to have at least one of those guys, whether it's Tiafoe, whether it's a Kudla, whether it's an Isner, or even a Steve Johnson, still sticking around by week 2. We know that the women have been, they can play into the second week. Venus Williams advanced along with, there's a few other Americans, some are even unseeded, who usually make their way towards late in the first week. It's nice to have Americans playing in the second week, and I think that might be a possibility this week. As Ben mentioned, the big guy in Tiafoe's quarter of the bracket is gone, and so there's an incredible possibility there.
I think Tiafoe can get to the quarterfinals. Am I crazy?
No, and that would be that would match his best Grand Slam appearance. He did that a couple of years ago in the Australian Open, and without looking too far back, just within the past few months in the fall at the US Open, he made it to the 4th round. So again, at some point you want to get a little further than that, but let's keep the expectations realistic here. If he could, again, play into the second week, if he could reach the final 8, that would be quite something, because to Dave's point, even as far as Americans just getting to the quarterfinals of Grand Slams, we just haven't seen a whole lot of that lately over the past number of years. So for Tiafoe to potentially have that opportunity, could face another seed as soon as the 3rd round, but to have the opportunity ahead of him, certainly something he could potentially take advantage of.
And this American drought that we're right in, there is an era of whether it's been Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Andy Murray has been great. Wawrinka has been fantastic, but it's the tennis, especially at the major tournament level, has been so top heavy the last decade plus that it's been very difficult for an American to break in. And with these guys, I'm still gonna not believe that Roger Federer is gonna bow out until he actually loses a match, at Wimbledon. Same with Djokovic, same with any of the other big guns. But I think their time is unbeaten, as we've often mentioned, in this forum. And I think perhaps this might be the opportunity that an American has not had in the last decade or so, because unlike golf, where you can still win a major, even going up against when Tiger Woods was at his peak, he wasn't winning every single major. And, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, the Giants, they won consistently, but they didn't win absolutely every major. But in order to win a tennis major, you have to not just have a great tournament, but you have to get through the best at that level or hope for an upset. And perhaps this is an opportunity for Tiafoe, Kudla, or one of the other guys to break through.
I thought it was interesting when Tiafoe said, after the match about him kind of refocusing himself and, I guess kind of focusing on different things, that he got together with his team and kind of just kind of needing to refocus because he had a couple early exits. And, at some point, you're right. You're right. It's at some point you got to make it past that spot where you haven't been to take that next step. So, maybe this is the time. I mean, he looked focused the other day, and Tsitsipas coming off that French Open final. I don't know if he played a tournament in between that. Ben would probably know better if he played a tournament between that and this. But I mean, it was evident right from the get-go that he was, Tiafoe was ready to play.
Yeah, Tsitsipas hadn't played since the French Open, whereas Tiafoe had won a smaller tier tournament, but had won a tournament overseas on grass a couple of weeks ago. So, to Tiafoe's credit, he took advantage of that freshness. And you know what, fellas, if you saw the match and you saw his post-game interview on Wimbledon, he's a showman, Tiafoe. And he acknowledged too. He said, if this match was on some backcourt, secondary court, I don't know if I would have brought my A game the way I did today. Yeah. And I think that's fun. He's an easy guy to kind of get behind, to root for, especially given the local ties in these parts. But he likes it. He embraces it. And, here's hoping he won a few fans over overseas as well in England.
And when he said at the end, he said, this guy's going to win a bunch of majors. Then he paused. He goes, not today. I thought that was great.
And speaking of that swagger, I don't want to overlook the women's draw. I mean, do we all think Serena's going to do it on the women's draw?
I'll tell you what, it's been a while, Rob, since she won a Grand Slam. I feel like we've been saying this for a number of years. She has to talking about getting over that hump. She's been going after 24 for quite a few years here. Hasn't been able to do it. Seemed like a foregone conclusion years ago. So we'll see if she's up to it here at Wimbledon. I also like to keep an eye, keeping it to the American theme. The other end of the spectrum, from the veteran in Serena, the young gun in still only 17 years old, Coco Gauff. She had her coming out party at Wimbledon a couple of years ago. Very fun, easy watch, and someone who also could make a deep run at Wimbledon.
All right, let's transition to the Nationals, shall we? And I want to give Chris Cichon his props, because he's been saying all season long, the rest of the division stinks. Don't worry about it. The Nats are going to make their move. And sure enough, Monday night's 8-4 win over the Mets now has them within 3 games of first place in the division. Chi, does this look like a first place team to you? They have been on a roll of late. Obviously, Schwarber is hammering the heck out of the ball at an alarming, really a historic rate. I mean, he just set the franchise record for most home runs in a month. So and now he's third in the majors with home runs now. So the Nationals are a hot team, and it's coincided with Schwarber's hot streak. Does this look like a first place team to you?
Everything we will find out in the next 2 days as they take on the defending American League champion Tampa Bay Rays. Yeah, they, took care of a Marlins team a couple of times, but they also lost Friday night 11-2. And John Lester was awful in that game, and he is one of the starters in this 2-game set. So's Joe Ross, who will come out one game and pitch lights out, and the next game get lit up as well. So they're taking on Rich Hill in game one of this 2-game set before the Dodgers come into town. I think these 2 series are everything we are going to be able to tell. We know how good Max Scherzer is. We're still waiting on Steven Strasburg to come back here. Patrick Corbin has gotten into better form. He's still not ace-like. We know that the pitching or the hitting has gotten better. There were a lot of games. There were 0 runs, 1 run. Gerardo Parra, guys like that stepping up who have just been a lift, I think, more than just offensively, but emotionally in the dugout. And these sort of things matter when it's 95 degrees out and it's hot and guys are aching because you know what? They played a lot of baseball since, last year. And, when the season started late and then jumping right into this year, their bodies might not be totally prepared for a 162 game season. So I just think emotional lifts like that help. And when you have guys stepping up from different positions, Starlin Castro having himself some nice nights after he struggled to start this season. So different guys are stepping up, but everything depends on these next 2 series, and we'll see how really good they are.
Yeah, and I'm still waiting for Juan Soto to have that big breakout. And I have a sneaking suspicion, this is going to be my little prediction right here. I think that he's going to have a nice little torrid streak out of the All-Star break. What are you thinking there, Preston?
He's got to get hot at some point in time. I mean, his numbers in his career, he's still young enough, and he still has played so few games that every so often a guy does have a peak year very early in an extended career. I go to my Red Sox roots. Mike Greenwell, his second full season, he had 22 homers, 119 RBI, didn't come close to those numbers again throughout the rest of his career. I think Juan Soto is a different type of player. I think he's a better player. I think he's going to eventually get, if not his career average numbers, but have a prototypical number of a slugger of his ability. The guy that I'm looking at in the outfield to make a jump or a leap or something, Victor Robles, has just 8 RBI at this point of the season, has yet to hit a home run, and he's also making base running blunders that we talk about what a great glove and what great wheels he has in that outfield. And while that is true, much like Jackie Bradley Jr. of the Red Sox, who had this fantastic glove, but you felt that the runs that he took off the board defensively, he took off the board with his bat. Victor Robles this year is taking runs off the board with his bat and with his base running. And that can't happen. We have to recognize, though, that he is still very young. He hasn't played a ton of games, but that has got to click at some point in time for Victor Robles. And I think I'm not as concerned as much with Juan Soto having a decent year. I think at the worst, he's going to hit 20 homers and maybe drive an 85, and that's going to be a subpar Juan Soto year, and we'll figure out what he needs to do to get better. But the gap between what Victor Robles, where he's headed, and where I would like for him to be is much wider. And the Nats need a Victor Robles much closer to the 17 homer, 28 steal guy from 2 years ago than the guy who's batting 8th and sometimes 9th behind the pitchers right now.
Yeah, and to that point, Dave Martinez on Sunday was sort of insinuating that, we're working with him, we're talking to him, we're trying to get him on the right path. And he insinuated that, he may have to pull him out of the lineup if he doesn't start to get it together.
And he has the past couple of games since Sunday, going with Gerardo Parra in the starting lineup. And Gerardo Parra with the Nationals now on this homestand. The difference, it's a small sample size, but the difference in his splits home and away. I don't know what's going on with Gerardo Parra, the baby shark, and if you buy into that. But what he's able to do at home, this goes back, of course, to 2019, compared to his productivity or sometimes lack thereof on the road, it's quite something. But at least I'm not sure that that's a long-term solution in the outfield. You got to get Victor Robles back. You got to get that productivity from him. But at least in the short term, if Parra can chip in and contribute as he did in the win over the Mets, something you could hold on to for at least a small sample size.
George, they always have to come in with the baby shark, man. They always have to hit me with this baby shark stuff, man.
Hey, listen, you got to do it. You can give the people what they want. I mean, he doubled, homered last night, and then made catch at the end of the game in the outfield. I mean, I know Robles also got hit. Didn't he get hit on the knee the other day?
Yeah, he did.
Is that what it was Sunday? So he's still a little banged. But no, if you're going to get rolling here at this point, then you're going to need everybody. And to your point about the base running situation and errors like that, you have to have everybody here. You can't be, there's going to be a point where there's no room for error at some point, and you're going to have everybody on the same page. You cannot make stupid outs. You got to be in the game mentally, and if not, you're going to find somebody that can do it, that wants to do it. I mean, if they're going to get contributions like this from par, and like to Ben's point, not a long-term solution, but guys know their roles. Look at Zim last night. Comes off the bench, hits the ball, he crushes the ball. I mean, homers. I mean, that's just that's what he's doing right now. And you're getting contributions like that. I mean, it's everybody else is starting to hit, and Soto's still hitting doubles. So you're right. Like at some point, he's going to get on that tear and get everybody clicking here. But I mean, I like what they've seen. I mean, it's we've said all year that once this lineup kind of gets going and starts hitting and scoring early, then you're going to see the run productivity. Now you just need, you can't have Suero and Miller and guys like that in the bullpen giving up 5-run leads like they did last night. You can't have Brad Hand come in for 5-6 out saves either. So, at some point you're going to have to get it all together, but they've put themselves in position right now. The division is not that great, but you've put yourselves in striking position and a big test coming up. You survived the Giants test a couple weeks ago. Now you got the Rays and the Dodgers coming up here. Going to be a couple good tests before the All-Star break. And before I go any further, I got to compliment Chi's tan. I mean, Chi, you're tan, bro. Like right beginning of summer, it's like I'm impressed.
I mean, it's
season 4
stuff, man.
Chris.
I just got off the lawnmower for 2 hours, so
Nice.
I am sunscreening up, of course. But yeah, this is where it's at, you guys. I mean, you guys want to get some property, come out to Carroll County, Howard County. You can still afford a couple acres out here.
Oh man, well, I got you cutting my grass then, because having been a homeowner in the past, that was something that got old really quickly. The first couple of cuts, it's just great to have a lawn that you can cut. And then after that, I'm like, this chore sucks. And then it turns into a competition with the neighbors because you can't have the long lawn and they have the nice fresh cut one. It's a competition that I didn't ask for. All right, guys. So George understands that. George has a sportscast to do here in a few minutes. So let's go around the horn here, if I can say that. George, what are you thinking about?
What am I thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, just sports related. I don't want to delve into the tangled web that is your mind.
Let's see what else we got. I mean, I'm focused on baseball right now. I am until training camp gets going. I'm just focused on baseball and see what this team can do. I mean, it's like I said, they put themselves in a spot now to have an interesting summer and to have the decisions they're going to have to make heading towards the All-Star break. To Chi's point, these next couple of weeks before the break and right after the break, going to go a long way in deciding which way Mike Rizzo is going to go. At the end of this month. But if this is a veteran team. And I think they're going to be, I just have a feeling that they're going to be right in the conversation, until the end, if they keep getting the contributions that they are. And also, like Dave mentioned in the beginning, like, Strasburg's not back yet. Let's give it up a little bit for Paolo Espino. Where's this guy? I mean,
he's been a lifesaver. His starts come against teams that they really needed to get a win, and he played absolutely lights out for a guy who's a 34-year-old rookie.
I mean, first save, first win. I mean, scoreless in the 5th and 6th innings. So that's my guy of the week. I know Schwarber's hitting, but let's give it up for Paolo Espino.
No, especially at a time when the pitching rotation is kind of
fluid.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Fluid. I was going to say like piecemeal, but yeah, fluid may be a better word there.
All right, good night, everybody.
All right, man. George Wallace signing off there, but let's get to Chris Cichon because I know he's going to insert a little hockey here, and you got to do that while we have Ben Raby in the house.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Careful
to
now.
Me. I mean, Ben, if you agree with this, and I know you're a cross-sport guy, we all work at WTOP, we cover all of them. The Tampa Bay Lightning, to me, remind me as a kid of the 96 Bulls. Just the dominance over the rest of the league. The Islanders took them to Game 7, and I think the Islanders are the best team that they were going to see in the postseason. The Montreal Canadiens in Game 1 did not look like they belonged in the same building as them. Where Montreal was able to limit a lot of Vegas's offensive opportunities, Tampa still got right in front of the net, created traffic in front of Carey Price, And I like Tampa's swagger at the very end of the game. You take it to our guys and start cross-checking Kucherov, we're going to run up the score on you. And that's what they did late, winning 5-1, having 5 forwards on the power play. So I don't know if Montreal at this point wins a game in this series. I'll give them one, maybe back in Montreal, if they allow more fans up there too, make that more of a raucous building. But to me, Tampa's just far and away the better team here, wins this series easily.
Yeah, one of the NHL's best over several years. And I will say real quick, if Tampa Bay is to win the Stanley Cup, good on them to be able to reap the benefits of doing so with fans in the building. They were Cup champions last year in the bubble in Edmonton. They said all the right things. You play your whole life to win the Stanley Cup, but come on, there's a different feeling, I would imagine, when you're able to do so in the appropriate environment with the fans, with the energy to be able to share it with them. So if Tampa Bay is to be able to triumph, I think it would be pretty neat for them to do so on home ice and to be able to share that with their fans who watched from afar when they did it last year from the bubble.
Very good. How about you, Dave Preston? What did you want to cap off with?
Well, Daryl Morcell departs Maryland, transfers to Marquette. Had a chance to watch him play for the Terps for 4 years. Fantastic guy, a great player, and one of those program players that every program that's successful they need. Not necessarily a first team guy in the Big Ten. He was Defensive Player of the Year, scored over 1,000 points. He's off to Marquette. He's able to use that 5th year of eligibility that they've allowed due to the pandemic. So he's able to take advantage of that. If it were a normal year, he would be playing overseas right now. But major props to him on a guy who stayed local. He's from Maryland, played at Maryland, helped lead him to 3 NCAA tournaments, and you wish him the best in the future. It's going to be fun to cover Georgetown this upcoming winter, and he'll come in with the Golden Eagles with Marquette.
Okay. Ben, did you have a parting shot, or were you just
wanted to put the spotlight again on baseball? George touched on it. It's baseball time right now. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Fernando Tatis Jr. It's like watching Sosa McGuire in '98. Every day you're checking the highlights, the box score, who passed who's up to what now. They're going back and forth for the home run lead with Shohei Ohtani in the mix as well. Shohei's been terrific this year, his best year by far. And the one I want to put the spotlight on as well, talking home runs, home run derby coming up in a couple of weeks in Colorado ahead of the All-Star game. And Baltimore's Trey Mancini, after missing all of last season while battling colon cancer, not only has returned to the majors in the Orioles this year, he has showed himself very well. He recently earned and accepted an invite to take part in the Home Run Derby, one of Major League Baseball's big nights for Stand Up to Cancer as well. I'm sure it's going to be an emotional time for Trey Mancini, but also an easy guy to get behind and to root for in the Home Run Derby. Kudos to Major League Baseball, and way to go, Trey Mancini. We'll see you at the Home Run Derby in Denver.
Boy, wouldn't that be something if he was able to pull off a victory in the Home Run Derby, given all that he's gone through over the course of the last year. I'm going to wrap up with the Washington football team. Tanya Snyder has been named the co-CEO of the franchise alongside her husband. And now let me say, I've applauded Washington for their diverse hiring at some of their top positions, but quite frankly, this ain't it. The United States of America has a long history of disguising moves to entrench the powerful and presenting it as progress. This is a move that, to me, sounds a lot like they're trying to ensure the Snyder family remains in control of the franchise, no matter what the outcome of the Beth Wilkinson investigation into workplace misconduct, whatever that turns up. So if you really want to make progress, sell the team to Oprah Winfrey or a minority not named Dan Snyder, or that doesn't have the last name Snyder. There's only one NFL owner right now of color, and he's in Jacksonville. There's never been a black owner in the league's history. So if you really want to be at the forefront of diversity, do something about it. So that's my final take on this, and we're going to go ahead and sign off here. It's been another fun edition of the WTOP Huddle. George Wallace off to what he does. I'm Rob Woodfork, alongside Dave, Chris Cichon, Ben Ray. Break the huddle, guys.
All right.
Hey.